So, how exactly does one become a long-term winner at sports betting? Is it even possible? Well, stay tuned to this video to find out. Welcome back to Sports Betting Truth, where it is my goal to give you actual sports betting advice without the touting, shilling, hype, or false promises. Now, if you have not watched my video, The Truth About Sports Betting, I highly suggest you watch that video first before watching this one because it will put you in the right mindset to watch this video. Now, the question of the day is, how exactly do you become a long-term profitable sports bettor? Is it even possible? Well, I'll try to answer that question today. But short, the answer is yes, it is possible. Now, I'm sure almost everybody who has bet on sports before has been a short-term winner. It's not that hard. It happens to everybody. I remember the very first time I bet on sports in 2011 during championship week for college basketball. And I went to Las Vegas and I made a lot of bets on college basketball that weekend. And I made so much money that I basically paid for the expenses of my trip. And I thought I was a genius, and my strategy was basically just to look at the board and pick what I thought looked like to be a winner. That's all I did, and I made a lot of money doing that. I even hit a 5-team parlay, and I thought I was a genius. I thought sports betting was easy. I went back to Las Vegas for college football, the first week of college football in 2011. Pretty much the same story. On the very first Thursday night, I made a ton of money. I hit a 3-team parlay and a 6-team teaser. I only lost 2 bets the entire night. I thought I was a genius. I thought this was easy. But like everything, all good things have to come to an end, and eventually, the more I bet with that strategy, the more I lost money. I'm sure many have been winners in the medium run before. They've probably bet an entire season of a sport, NFL, MLB, you name it. They probably made wagers throughout the entire season and came out ahead. Very possible, very doable. But when it comes to long-term winners, most people have not been able to achieve that. If you watched my Sports Betting Truth video, probably around at least 99%, probably more than that, have not been a long-term winner. It's very hard. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. There are no shortcuts or guarantees. So before I discuss the avenues and pathways to long-term profitability, first I'm going to discuss what not to do for long-term profitability. Number 1 is going to be the most common method of sports betting that most people employ, the one I employed during my short-term successes back in 2011, and that is what I call eyeballing the board. You simply look at the odds board, you look at the matchups, and you just, that looks good, that looks good, that looks like a winner. I think that team will cover. That's all it really consists of. You just go with what you feel, the emotion you feel when you first lay eyes on the matchup. A lot of people will say, I don't really have a strategy when I bet on sports. I'm just really good at eyeballing the board and picking out winners. That's not a strategy. I'm sorry, that is not a strategy. No matter how assertive somebody is that says that is the strategy they use to win, I guarantee you nobody has ever come out ahead in the long term using that strategy. I don't care what the media says. I don't care what supposed professional sports bettor being interviewed by ESPN says. It's not a long-term strategy for profit. Same goes with hunches. A lot of people say, I just play my hunches. My gut picks winners, right? Again, not a strategy that is going to win you money in the long run. It is a recipe for failure. Hunches do not win you money. Percentages win you money. A lot of people say, well, I just study the stats and the matchups and I watch the games and I can just get a good feel of where the game's going to go based on that. Well, the problem with this, there's nothing wrong with studying the statistics or the matchups. There's nothing wrong with watching the games. But the problem is, anytime you do that without any way to quantify it, you're always going to introduce your own biases to it. For example, when you're looking over the stats, you're probably going to have an internal bias that favors certain stats and ignores other stats, just your internal biases. Even though the stats you might favor and think are important might not really matter, or the stats that you're ignoring and don't feel are that important might be the stats that matter when it comes to determining an edge in the game. That's the issue with looking at the stats and the matchups and watching the games, is everybody has their internal biases that they're not going to be able to overcome. For example, a lot of people might always favor their team that they root for and not look at things objectively. And even when they're trying to analyze games that don't involve teams that they root for, there's still going to be internal biases that cannot be overcome. Everybody is naturally going to gravitate towards certain things and drift away from others. Without a way to know what matters and what doesn't, it's a recipe for disaster. And a lot of people say, well, I just go with the trends, whatever the trends say. The problem with trends is that a lot of them don't have sample sizes big enough to make any kind of prediction off of. And if they did, and if the trend truly mattered, it's already factored into the line, and the bookmakers already know about it. You're not going to catch any odds maker or market off guard with a trend, especially if it's posted on Twitter for the entire world to see by some tout or ESPN or whoever is pushing these trends. A lot of media types will use trends not to give what might be a good bet, but to make themselves look credible. Touts love to use trends because it makes them look credible to funnel people into their tout schemes. But the thing is, most trends are irrelevant. There's one trend I saw. It was like Michigan State has covered in their last 6 games versus Michigan. It was something along that. Maybe not that exactly, but it was something along that. But it said Michigan State has covered in their last 6 home games versus Michigan. But the problem is that only one of those home games has anybody on the roster that is currently playing for Michigan State. So 5 of those games in that 6 sample size trend had no players that are currently playing for Michigan State. So why should those games matter at all? And why stop at 6? Why not go to 8 or 10? Why are those 6 only relevant, right? Arbitrary start points and end points and old data that has gone stale is just a recipe for disaster if you're trying to play the trends. A lot of people will use systems. The problem with systems, just like systems when it comes to casino gambling, is that most of them don't work. If they truly worked, the casino games wouldn't exist because there would be a way to beat them. A lot of people try to use these fancy betting systems, and by systems I don't mean model. I mean like the martingale system, which is probably the most popular casino system out there. The martingale system is basically I place a unit on a wager, and if it loses, I double my wager after that, and I keep doubling my wager until it wins, and then I'll win a unit. And the idea behind that is the odds of you losing a bunch of bets in a row are very slim, but it will happen in the martingale system. Everybody who has tried the martingale system before has gotten to a point where they lost so many bets in a row, they lost all their bankroll. It happens to everybody who tries the martingale system. And other systems in gambling, whether it be casino games or sports betting, have the same fate. Again, if it were that easy, everybody would do it and the books would be ruined. There are no systems that will work in sports betting or in casinos. And last, but certainly not least, a failed strategy is to pay for picks, is to buy picks from a tout. I despise touts. I am going to do an entire video series about why touts are the worst part of sports betting, but that is not here or there. But I will say this, buying picks from a tout or a pick service or a pick seller is a guaranteed way to lose money, period. Trust me on this one. My channel has no tolerance at all for tout. Not only do I not tolerate touts, I will never speak highly of touts. I will never speak of touts in a positive manner, ever. And if I do, I want you to come find me and beat me up and knock some sense into me. And unsubscribe from my channel and dislike the video. All right, now that you know what not to do, we're going to get into what you need to do. Now, the first step is to utilize what I call basic strategy in sports betting. Basic strategy is kind of like basic strategy in blackjack, in which it'll minimize your losses if you employ it. It won't win you money, but it will minimize your losses and allow your money to last longer. Now, the first bullet point of basic strategy is to stick to side bets, money line bets, totals, and other bets that carry the lowest house edge. Avoid bet types that carry high house edges like parlays, teasers, round robins, and all of those. Those are just going to make you lose your money faster. Without going into too much detail about why parlays and teasers are a bad idea, I just will say that they carry high house edges and they will not win you money. I know parlays seem really attractive because of the amount of money you can win if you hit them, but the chances of you hitting these big parlays are extremely slim. They're almost like lottery tickets. And B, if you do win them, you're not going to get paid out fairly based on the actual odds of winning those bets. So just avoid those types of bets. Stick with the low house edge bets. Second is if you have the ability, if you have multiple places to place bets, line shop for the best available line within reason. I mean, if you're in Las Vegas and you have a book in Reno offering one line, I'm not saying drive all the way to Reno to get an extra half point or point of value, but within reason, if you don't have to go that far out of the way to place a bet that has better odds, then do it. It will add up in the long run. That half point or point might not seem like a big deal on a one-off, but over time it will add up. And 3, Practice disciplined bankroll management. I know that sounds pretty basic and obvious, but a lot of people don't do this over time. They will slip up over time and they will justify one bad decision. Oh, it's just a one-off thing, and then it'll snowball and it'll start happening all the time. Be disciplined with your bankroll. Do not overbet your bankroll. Do not chase losses. Do not do anything that is undisciplined that will cause you to lose your money faster. So if you just do those 3 things, your money's going to last longer and you're going to minimize your losses. Ultimately, the goal of my channel is not so much to help you win. Yes, I want you to win, and I hope my advice can help you get on the path to winning. Ultimately, I think the measure of success in my channel will be for you to lose less money. Whether that be in the form of winning money or just losing money at a slower rate, it doesn't matter. That's how I measure success. I am never going to guarantee success in terms of winning on this channel. Because like I said in my truth video, there are no guarantees in sports betting, period. So therefore, I'm not going to guarantee if you follow my advice that you will win. What I will say though is that you will lose less money. I know what you're thinking. Well, then why should I watch your channel if you're not going to show me how to win? Well, what would you rather do? Would you rather watch somebody's channel or listen to somebody's advice who guarantees that you're going to win if you follow their advice and then you lose? Or would you rather listen to somebody like me who shoots it to you straight and is realistic about your chances of winning, and that way you have a good idea of what to expect? That's up for you to decide, but I know which way I would go. Someone who's honest with you up front. Now, with that out of the way, I will say that there is a path to long-term profitability. And as I pointed out in my sports betting truth video, I said path, not way. A way implies guarantee. A way implies that if you do this, you will win. A path implies that there is a path that you can navigate and perhaps land at profitability land, but it's a path, not a way. You still have to navigate it. You still have to do the right things. You still have to follow the right path and not slip up. Now on this path, you're probably, actually most certainly going to hit some dead ends, some roadblocks, some pitfalls, and some destruction. You are going to slip up along the way, I guarantee it. But if you stick it out long enough and are disciplined and work hard enough and put in enough effort and time, perhaps you will find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So first up, as I pointed out in my sports betting truth video, in order to profit in the long term, the only way you can do this is if you develop a mathematical, analytical model that is rooted in measurable, defined, and quantifiable statistics. That is the only way. And as I pointed out in the truth video, you don't need a PhD in data science or math or anything like that, but at the very least, you're going to need some basic math knowledge, basic statistical knowledge, and some basic Excel functions and programming skills. In order to get your foot in the door, it doesn't take that much. The learning curve is really advancing yourself and becoming more complex. That's where the learning curve is. But to get your foot in the door, you don't need that much. So what you're aiming to do with your model is not so much predict games. Yes, that's the ultimate output of your model. But what you're really trying to do is find where the odds makers and markets are weak. You're trying to find their weak points. Like in the movie Star Wars, they were able to blow up the Death Star by finding the weak point in the Death Star. That's what you're trying to do with your model. As smart and as sophisticated as the odds makers are, they still can't cover all their bases. It's just not possible. They just don't have the resources or the time or the ability to cover every base. So the odds they put out are odds based on their best attempt at covering as many bases as possible, but there's still going to be weak points. So the idea of your model is to find what those weak points are, what the odds makers are not factoring in, and try to exploit those soft points for a profit. So you're going to have to get creative, you're going to have to get analytical, you're going to have to think outside the box probably. You're going to have to put something together that uses a combination of various statistics and methods to find these weak points. And then you're going to test it and see if those weak points hold up over time for you to make your long-term profit. Now, everything you do in your model needs to be translated into percentages of some sort, because ultimately what this is about is playing the percentages. Again, you're trying to get that 2.4% in order to break even. In order to do that, you need to measure the percentages. Ultimately, long-term profitability is about being on the right side of these razor-thin margins. And if you can do that, you have a chance. The basic idea behind the percentages is over time, if you calculate you have an edge based on a percentage, if your model is correct, then over time, you're going to get a return based on that calculated edge. For example, in baseball, if you have a money line favorite of minus 200, that means the odds say that they are a 66.7% chance of winning, or 2/3, right? But if you have a model that says this team is going to win 70% of the time, then according to your model, you have a 2.33% edge. So if you were to bet that edge over an infinite number of times, you would show a 2.3% profit over time if you were to continue to make that bet. That's how playing the percentages works. Here's the deal though, you don't want to start big at once, especially if you're new at this. You don't want to overwhelm yourself because this can be very overwhelming. What you want to do is start small, get an understanding of the concepts and how things work, and then slowly advance yourself. Trial and error is going to be your biggest friend here. You need to learn how to learn from failure. That's ultimately going to be your biggest teacher, is learning from failure. Because if you succeed right off the bat, good for you, but you're not going to learn anything. Failure and trial and error are going to be your teachers here. Respect them. And when I say don't put the cart before the horse, don't. Beware of short-term success. Beware of short-term success. By that I mean if you create a model and you run it for one day and it hits like 70% of the bets, don't all of a sudden think you have a winning model and start putting your entire mortgage payment on these bets the next day. Be patient with your model. Don't assume an early run of success means that it's going to always be that way. On the flip side, don't assume failure out of the gates means that it's trash. Be patient. Let your model play out. Build up a big enough sample size to where you can determine if it's worth keeping or if you have to alter it or scrap it altogether. And remember, a profitable model may not always be a profitable model. Just because you have one that's profiting for you right now doesn't mean that will always be the case. So therefore, don't overbet your bankroll if you have a winner. Still be disciplined, still assume that at any moment it's going to flip and not make you money anymore. Now, those are kind of the basics at how to win at sports betting in terms of modeling. As you can see, I didn't get into the nitty-gritty on how to build a model. The point of this video is to be a little bit more broad in terms of what to do and what not to do. In terms of actually starting off and building a model, I do have videos for that coming. I plan on making some educational videos and tutorial videos on how to build models, not start to finish, not how to build a profitable model, but more of the concepts of building a model. That way you kind of have the tools at your disposal to know what to do. I'm not going to build videos to hold your hand and show you exactly what to do because I have my ways on how I do things to make a long-term profit. I'm not going to give that away. That's my secret. Those are my edges and I'm going to protect them. Here's the analogy I'm going to use. I will show you how to build a house. I will not build a house for you. But I will show you how to use the tools. I will show you the methods. I will show you what you can do, what you shouldn't do, but I will not show you how to do it. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, that wraps up this video of Sports Betting Truth. If you liked what I had to say, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and stay tuned for more videos. These videos that I've made, the Sports Betting Truth video and this one, were intentionally pretty broad, but I do plan to get a bit more granular going forward so where you can learn more and get more in-depth analysis and more in-depth teachings. So until next time, Sports Betting Truth, signing off.